Why are the chosen born into toxic families? This is a question that carries a disconcerting yet liberating truth. It might seem absurd to think that pain, abandonment, or even rejection could be part of a divine gift, right? But what if I told you that all of this is part of a greater plan? A plan designed to shape you, strengthen your soul, and break cycles of suffering that have lingered for generations. Imagine for a moment that the pain you face is like the fire refining gold. Toxic families, with all their complexity, can be the crucible where resilience, empathy, and wisdom are forged. The question is not why you were born into this environment, but what you can learn and transform from it. After all, God never gives a burden greater than we can bear, and perhaps this is proof that you were chosen for something much greater. This idea challenges everything we've learned about happiness and comfort. That's why you need to stay until the end of this video, because what comes next might completely change the way you see your story. There is hidden meaning in the pain, and together, we'll uncover it. The soul's choice. Imagine for a moment that life isn't just a series of random events, but rather a meticulously crafted plan by a higher force. Before even taking its first breath, the soul resides in a dimension of pure consciousness, reflecting on the kind of experience it wants to live. It's like standing before an infinite library, choosing the book that will best shape its evolution. In this context, the soul makes a decision that might seem counterintuitive, to be born into a toxic family. Why? Because it understands that challenges are like weights in the gym of life, difficult to lift but essential for strength. Picture a quiet room where the universe itself acts as a mentor, presenting different scenarios that could accelerate your spiritual growth. This family here, says the mentor, is a crucible of lessons in resilience, forgiveness, and growth. The soul, fully aware of the pain these experiences will bring, does not hesitate. It accepts because it knows that only through fire can pure gold emerge. Doesn't this shift your perspective? Perhaps what you've always considered a curse is, in fact, the greatest gift. But how do you justify this choice through human logic? After all, who would willingly choose emotional pain or rejection? The answer lies in a deeper understanding. Pain is temporary, but learning is eternal. Think of a seed. To germinate, it must be buried in darkness, pressed by the soil, and endure the discomfort of breaking through its shell. Similarly, being born into a challenging environment is the darkness that leads to growth. Perhaps the soul already knew that the very suffering it endured would become the foundation for helping others find light in their paths. There's an ancient story of a woman who, throughout her life, faced constant abuse within her family. Instead of being consumed by it, she transformed her pain into compassion. She founded an organization that rescued children from similar situations. When asked how she found such strength, she replied, "I knew from a young age that my pain had a greater purpose." This is a clear example of how a soul can choose adverse environments to shape itself into something extraordinary. Now think about your own life. Have there been moments when you questioned why you were born into a particular family, with so much conflict and so many challenges? What if the answer isn't punishment but a calling? Each difficulty is like a disguised teacher, delivering lessons that shape your character, awaken your empathy, and develop your understanding. Family is the initial training ground where life's first battles occur. And even if the arena seems unfair, the weapons you forge there will be the same ones you'll use to win greater wars. Reflecting on this, another intriguing question arises. Is it possible that your soul not only chose the challenges but also the tools to overcome them? The people who entered your life, the experiences you've lived through, and even the books that crossed your path may be clues to a greater plan. Isn't it inspiring to think that you have everything you need to transform your reality, even when it feels unbearable? The very concept of family might gain a new perspective. Perhaps family isn't just those people with whom you share blood, but also those you choose along the journey. Friends who become siblings, mentors who become spiritual parents, and partners who share the walk. Your soul knew that along the way, you'd find allies to balance the challenges. After all, God never gives a burden greater than we can carry. What if you could revisit your past experiences with this new perspective? The memory of painful moments could transform into maps guiding the way to healing. It's not about denying or minimizing the pain, but recognizing its potential to shape something extraordinary within you. When you look at your scars with gratitude, you discover they are medals of courage, not marks of defeat. Thus, the soul's choice before birth isn't a whim but a divine strategy. Every soul, when choosing its journey, is aware that difficulties are gateways to greater spiritual understanding. In this scenario, the toxic family becomes the stage where redemption can occur, not only for the individual soul but for entire generations. And here, the narrative takes an intriguing turn. How can the dynamics of such a conflict-filled family be seen as an alchemical furnace? The answer may lie in the next chapter, where the fire of toxicity reveals its true role in inner transformation. The concept of toxic families as crucibles is, at first glance, a disturbing idea. However, it is essential to understand that a crucible, a container used to withstand extreme temperatures and purify metals, symbolizes the role these families play in shaping the soul. Within chaos and pain lies the opportunity for profound transformation. Each conflict, harsh word, or icy silence is like intense heat burning away impurities, revealing the true value of the being shaped. When thinking about a toxic family, the initial reaction may be rejection. After all, who would want to stay in an environment that constantly challenges their peace? Yet it is precisely in this barren ground that the noblest qualities of humanity flourish. Resilience, empathy, and the ability to forgive do not arise from comfort but from friction. Just as diamonds are formed under extreme pressure, the soul is strengthened through adversity. Imagine a person who grew up hearing they would never be good enough. This narrative, as painful as it may be, can become the catalyst for an unrelenting quest for self-validation and overcoming. This story is not uncommon. Many who have achieved great things in life recount that the fire of criticism ignited the flame of their determination. Thus, even amidst pain, there is an opportunity for growth that cannot be ignored. Toxic dynamics also act as mirrors, reflecting internal aspects often overlooked. When a parent or sibling acts cruelly, it can be an invitation for self-reflection. What is this situation trying to teach me? This does not mean justifying abusive behavior, but rather extracting profound lessons that aid in personal evolution. The crucible does not destroy, it purifies. Stories of overcoming are full of examples of people who transformed what seemed to be a curse into a blessing. One woman, after years of living with a controlling and critical mother, became a therapist who helps others rebuild their self-esteem. In her account, she states that every therapy session she conducts is like giving back to the world what was once almost taken from her. This is the alchemical power of suffering. But the crucible also tests limits. There are moments when the heat feels unbearable and the urge to escape becomes overwhelming. At such times, it is important to remember that every purification process has its timing. Just as the blacksmith knows the right moment to remove the metal from the fire, life also knows when a soul is ready for the next stage. Until then, it's essential to trust the process and seek support, whether from friends, inspiring books, or faith. The analogy of the crucible also suggests that suffering is never in vain. Every insult or rejection, as unjust as it may seem, contributes to the soul's greater narrative. This does not mean passively accepting pain, but rather using it as a springboard for something greater. After all, the same fire that can destroy can also illuminate. It all depends on how the energy is channeled. However, discernment is essential. Just because the crucible is necessary doesn't mean it should be permanent. There comes a time to step out of the fire and recognize that purification is complete. Identifying this moment is part of the wisdom gained through experience. Knowing when to forgive, when to leave, and when to start anew is what distinguishes a strengthened soul from a broken one. And so arises the question, how do you transform the heat of toxicity into inner light? The answer lies in the next chapter, where the role of ancestral healing reveals the keys to liberating not only your own soul but also the generations yet to come. The concept of ancestral healing is rooted in the idea that we are not merely products of our individual choices but also heirs to a lineage of experiences, traumas, and triumphs. Being born into a toxic family is not just a personal challenge. It is a calling to break cycles that have persisted for generations. Imagine yourself as a bridge between the past and the future, carrying the unique opportunity to transform inherited wounds into legacies of healing. This responsibility may seem overwhelming, but it is also profoundly liberating. When we talk about ancestral healing, many imagine rituals or complex spiritual practices. However, the process can be surprisingly simple and start with small acts of awareness. For example, by recognizing harmful behavioral patterns that repeat within your family, you are already taking the first step. It might be something like a tendency toward emotional isolation or a cycle of explosive anger. Identifying these dynamics is like turning on a light in a dark room, revealing the obstacles that need to be removed. There is a story of a man who grew up in a home where communication was consistently marked by destructive criticism. When he became a father, he realized he was repeating the same pattern with his children. That was when he decided to seek help, read about nonviolent communication, and commit to transforming that pattern. Today, his children grow up in an environment where respectful dialogue is the norm. This is the power of ancestral healing in action, breaking cycles so the future can be different. But healing is not just about correcting past mistakes. It's also about honoring the sacrifices and achievements that came before us. Think of your ancestors as runners in a relay race, passing the baton from generation to generation. Some may have stumbled, but others ran with grace and determination. Recognizing this legacy is a way to find strength to continue the race, knowing that you are also leaving a mark. One of the most powerful ways to initiate ancestral healing is through forgiveness. This does not mean justifying or minimizing the wrongs committed, but rather releasing the emotional weight they carry. Forgiveness is like letting go of a rope you've been pulling with all your might. When you release it, you realize the tension wasn't just external but also internal. This act of liberation is crucial for creating space for new dynamics. Simple practices can help in this process. Writing a letter to an ancestor, even if they are no longer alive, can be incredibly therapeutic. In this letter, you can express gratitude, apologize, or simply share how you feel. This symbolic act has the power to create an emotional connection that transcends time and space, bringing a sense of peace and resolution. However, ancestral healing is not a linear path. There will be days when you feel as though you are moving backward, reliving old pains or facing internal resistance. This is part of the process. Just as a physical wound needs to be cleaned before it can heal, emotional wounds also need to be exposed to the light of awareness before they can be healed. In these moments, it is crucial to be gentle with yourself and remember that healing is an act of courage, not perfection. Sometimes, ancestral healing also involves setting healthy boundaries with family members who continue to perpetuate toxic dynamics. This can be incredibly difficult, but is also a way to protect the progress you've already made. Remember that setting boundaries is not an act of rejection but of love for yourself and the potential for healthier relationships in the future. And so, every step taken in this process is not just a personal victory but also a gift for future generations. Every broken pattern, every healed wound, is like a tree growing stronger and scattering seeds for the future. It is a silent but powerful work that transcends time. In the end, ancestral healing reminds us that we are not alone. We are part of a greater web of connections that both support and challenge us to grow. And within this web, the role of pain as a teacher takes on even more meaning, preparing the ground for the next chapter of this journey. Pain is often seen as an enemy, something to be avoided at all costs. However, under closer scrutiny, it can reveal itself as one of the most sincere and impactful teachers life offers. Imagine pain as a mirror reflecting what we often don't want to see, our weaknesses, fears, and areas in our lives that need attention. Yes, it is uncomfortable, but it is also transformative. Without it, we might never feel compelled to grow or change. In a toxic family, pain can be a constant presence, manifesting as rejection, criticism, or abandonment. But each of these experiences has something to teach. Rejections may push us to find acceptance within ourselves. Criticism might invite us to evaluate who we truly are rather than blindly accepting the opinions of others. And abandonment can lead us to build emotional autonomy, making us stronger and more resilient. There is a story about a woman who grew up being told she would never accomplish anything meaningful. For years, she believed these words and remained in a state of apathy. But one day, as she reflected on her pain, she realized that she had built an internal narrative based on others' voices. That moment of clarity was a turning point. She began working on herself, studying, developing skills, and eventually achieving things her family could never have imagined. Her pain was the mirror that revealed her inner strength. As uncomfortable as it is, pain is also a teacher that accepts no excuses. When we ignore its signs, it amplifies, like an alarm insisting on being heard. Someone stuck in a cycle of failed relationships, for instance, might discover through pain that they need to change something within themselves, perhaps by setting clearer boundaries or seeking therapy to heal past wounds. Pain is not random. It is strategic. Often, it arises precisely in the areas that need the most attention. If you constantly feel misunderstood, it might signal the need to work on communication. If you are trapped in repetitive patterns of failure, perhaps it's time to reassess your choices and beliefs. Pain points to where the work needs to be done, like a teacher highlighting errors on a test so we can learn. Practices like journaling can help process pain and transform it into learning. Ask yourself, what is this situation trying to teach me? Or how can I grow through this? Often, as you write, surprising answers begin to emerge. This kind of active reflection turns pain from a burden into an opportunity. There is also a spiritual aspect to pain. In many religious traditions, pain is seen as a means of purification or growth. In Christianity, for example, Christ's suffering on the cross is a powerful symbol of redemption and transformation. Similarly, our pain can bring us closer to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us, if we allow it. However, it's crucial to remember that pain should not be romanticized or unnecessarily prolonged. It has a purpose, but also a limited time. Learning from it is important, but remaining in it indefinitely is harmful. Just as a student eventually graduates and moves on, we too must leave pain behind when its work is done. Pain, when seen as both a mirror and a teacher, offers us an entirely new perspective on life's challenges. Instead of feeling like victims of circumstances, we can see ourselves as students of the universe, learning from every lesson it presents. And this is precisely where the next chapter unfolds, the challenge of breaking cycles and creating a new story for ourselves. Breaking cycles is one of the most challenging and transformative tasks a person can face. These cycles often feel like invisible chains keeping us tied to patterns of behavior, thoughts, and relationships that prevent us from growing. But why is it so hard to break these chains? Because they often come laden with family stories, deeply rooted beliefs, and, above all, fear of the unknown. Imagine a young man who grew up in a family where failure was constantly criticized. Throughout his life, he developed a paralyzing fear of trying something new, preferring the safety of what he already knows. To break this cycle, he must challenge not only his own beliefs but also the echoes of his family's voices still resonating in his mind. This is the essence of the challenge: confronting discomfort and opening up to the possibility of failing and learning. Breaking cycles first requires a deep awareness that they exist. Often, we are so immersed in our routines and family dynamics that we don't even notice the repetitive pattern. An effective tool for identifying these cycles is self-reflection. Ask yourself, what behaviors of mine repeat even when I don't want them to? Or what stories have I been told about who I am and how I should act? These questions act like flashlights illuminating the shadowy paths of the subconscious. But awareness is only the first step. True transformation happens when you decide to act. This might mean seeking therapy, reading books on personal development, or even changing your social environment. For instance, a woman who realized she was stuck in repetitive abusive relationships decided to invest in self-awareness. She sought emotional support, studied healthy dynamics, and eventually found the courage to set clear boundaries and accept nothing less than she deserved. This process wasn't easy, but it was liberating. Fear is one of the biggest obstacles to breaking cycles. It whispers that staying where you are is safer, even if it means continuing to suffer. Facing this fear requires courage and a greater sense of purpose. Ask yourself, what am I losing by staying where I am? Often, the answer to this question is what propels us to act. After all, the discomfort of change is temporary, but the weight of an unbroken cycle can last a lifetime. Another essential element in breaking cycles is personal responsibility. This means recognizing that, while we cannot control what happened to us, we can control how we respond to it. For example, a man who grew up in a home where communication was marked by yelling and aggression decided that his family would be different. He committed to speaking calmly, even in moments of conflict, and teaching his children to express their emotions in healthy ways. His decision not only broke the cycle but also created a new pattern for future generations. External support is also vital. Breaking cycles often means going against the expectations and patterns of your own family, which can be incredibly isolating. Having a support network, whether friends, therapists, or online communities, can make all the difference. These people not only offer encouragement but also help you stay focused on your long-term goals. There's also the matter of patience. Breaking cycles is a process, not an event. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, and days when it feels easier to give up. In these moments, it's crucial to remember why you started. Visualize the future you want to create and use that image as a source of motivation. Ultimately, breaking cycles is an act of love, for yourself and for future generations. Every broken pattern, every different choice, is a gift you give to the world. And as you face this challenge, you become a living example that transformation is possible. It is at this point that the power of forgiveness and release comes into play, bringing new perspectives on what it truly means to be free. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful and transformative choices a human being can make. It's like letting go of a rope you've been pulling with all your might, feeling the immediate relief when you finally release it. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or justifying what happened. It is a conscious decision to free yourself from the weight of resentment, allowing yourself to move forward without the emotional chains that bind you to the past. Imagine a man who spent years harboring resentment against a brother who betrayed him. He carried this pain like an invisible burden, affecting every area of his life. One day, he decided to write a letter to his brother, not to send but to express everything he felt. Upon finishing, he realized that the anger wasn't protecting him, it was consuming him. His decision to forgive didn't lead to immediate reconciliation, but it brought a peace he hadn't felt in years. The power of forgiveness lies in its ability to transform. It doesn't change what happened, but redefines how you deal with it. Choosing to forgive is like opening a window in a stuffy room. Fresh air enters, renewing your emotions and bringing clarity. Contrary to popular belief, forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself, not to someone else. Often, we confuse forgiveness with reconciliation. While it's possible for the two to coexist, they are not synonymous. You can forgive someone without ever allowing them back into your life. Forgiveness is about releasing the control that pain has over you, not about forgetting or ignoring the consequences of what happened. Consider the example of a woman who grew up in a home filled with emotional abuse. For years, she harbored anger toward her parents, believing that this emotion was a way to protect her dignity. However, as she began a journey of self-discovery, she realized that the anger was shaping her choices and relationships. By working through forgiveness, she not only released the weight she carried but also built a new relationship with herself, rooted in compassion and peace. Simple practices can aid in this process. Keeping a journal, for instance, can be a powerful tool. By recording your feelings, you can identify patterns of pain and understand how they impact your life. Another practice is meditation, where you can visualize yourself releasing the negative energy associated with a situation or person. There is also a spiritual aspect to forgiveness. In many religious traditions, forgiveness is seen as an act of liberation for the soul. In Christianity, for example, forgiveness is a demonstration of divine grace, allowing individuals to reconnect with God and their essence. This perspective provides a greater sense of purpose, helping transform pain into an opportunity for spiritual growth. But how do you know if you've truly forgiven? A clear sign is when you can recall the situation without feeling the same emotional weight. This doesn't mean you agree with what happened, but that you've chosen not to let it control you anymore. Breaking free from pain through forgiveness is an act of courage. It requires confronting your deepest emotions, but also offers a freedom that cannot be found any other way. By forgiving, you create space for something new. New relationships, new experiences, and above all, a new version of yourself. Now, look within yourself and reflect. What are the cycles you're ready to break? Where is that silent resentment, that deep pain you carry like an invisible shadow? Perhaps it's time to realize that holding on to this pain doesn't protect you. It imprisons you. Imagine the relief of letting go of that weight, freeing yourself from chains you didn't even know were there. Think of how many opportunities for peace and growth await you on the other side of forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't just for others. It's for you, for your freedom, for your rebirth. Every act of forgiveness is a powerful declaration that you will not be defined by what you've suffered but by what you've chosen to overcome. So, ask yourself, what can you transform starting now? Who can you become by letting go of what no longer serves your growth? Start small. Write about how you feel, allow yourself to cry, and acknowledge your pain. Then, take one step, just one, toward a lighter life. You don't have to do this alone. Seek support. Surround yourself with people who inspire and motivate your journey. If this content resonated with your heart, share this message with someone you love. Spread the power of forgiveness and liberation. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join this community that believes in rebirth, resilience, and the infinite potential of every soul. The next chapter of your life is waiting to be written, and it promises to be extraordinary.